The cafe was alive with activity, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the air as the sound of clinking cups and soft chatter created a warm hum. I wiped the counter, my movements quick but steady. "Double espresso for table 6, my coworker called out. "On it," I replied, grabbing the clean cup and placing it under the machine. "My name is Emma. I'm a barista in this bustling cafe. Every day, I serve coffee to people rushing through their lives, each with their own stories. But deep down, I have a dream of my own, to open my own cafe. A cozy, welcoming place where every drink tells a story, much like the people who order them." Today was one of those particularly hectic days. The line at the counter seemed never-ending, and my boss had already given me a sharp comment about being more efficient. I tried to keep my head down, working as quickly as I could. "Excuse me, miss," a voice interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see a man in a dark coat. He was smiling, but there was something enigmatic about his expression. "Can I get a caramel macchiato?" "Extra foam, please." "Of course," I replied, preparing the drink and handing it over. He took a sip, nodded with satisfaction, and placed a folded piece of paper on the counter. "This is for you," he said, then walked out before I could respond. I stared at the paper, my curiosity piqued. What could it be? Why had he given it to me? I slipped it into my pocket as the next customer called for my attention. By the end of my shift, I couldn't stop thinking about that mysterious note. What could it possibly say? As the cafe emptied and the hum of the espresso machine faded, I finally had a moment to breathe. My hands, still smelling of coffee, reached into my pocket to retrieve the folded piece of paper. I sat at a small corner table, away from the noise of the kitchen. Carefully, I unfolded the note. The handwriting was neat and deliberate, as if the writer had taken their time. Dream big. Work with heart. Everything great starts small. I read the words aloud softly, as if hearing them would make them clearer. My brows furrowed in thought. Was this meant to be motivational? Or was there some hidden message I was supposed to uncover? Hey, what's that? A voice startled me. It was Mark, my coworker and occasional confidant. He plopped down in the chair across from me, still in his apron. A customer gave me this, I said, sliding the note across the table. Mark picked it up and read it aloud, then gave me a skeptical look. Kind of random, don't you think? Maybe, but it feels personal, I replied. Like they knew I needed to hear this. Mark smirked. You've been talking about starting your own cafe forever. Maybe it's a sign. I laughed nervously, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. Or maybe it's just a strange coincidence. Mark leaned back in his chair. Look, you're great at what you do. If anyone can make their own cafe work, it's you. But it won't happen if you keep putting it off. His words lingered as we finished cleaning up for the night. The note stayed tucked in my pocket, its message replaying in my mind as I walked home under the city's flickering streetlights. What if Mark was right? What if this wasn't just a random act of kindness? What if it really was a sign? For the first time in months, I felt a small spark of hope flickering within me. The next morning, I arrived at the cafe earlier than usual. The streets were quiet, the sky painted with soft shades of dawn. I unlocked the doors, flicked on the lights, and began preparing for the day. As I measured coffee beans, my thoughts drifted back to the note. Dream big. Work with heart. The words felt heavier now, as if they carried a challenge I wasn't sure I was ready to accept. The morning rush came and went, leaving the cafe buzzing with energy. I found myself paying closer attention to the people I served. A woman tapping away on her laptop while sipping a latte. A man flipping through a newspaper, his coffee untouched. Each customer seemed wrapped in their own world, their own dreams and routines. "Excuse me, miss," a voice said, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was him, the man from yesterday. He stood at the counter, his coat folded neatly over his arm. "Good morning," I greeted, trying to sound casual. "Caramel macchiato again?" He smiled, a warm but unreadable expression. "Yes, please. Extra foam." As I prepared his drink, I couldn't help but feel a surge of curiosity. Should I ask him about the note? Would he think I was being nosy? I handed him the cup, and as he reached for it, our eyes met. "Thank you," he said, pausing for a moment. "I hope you found the note useful." My heart skipped a beat. He knew I had read it. It was unexpected, I admitted. But yes, it made me think. "Good," he said, his tone kind but firm. "Sometimes, a small push is all we need." Before I could ask more, he turned and walked toward the door. This time, he didn't leave a note, but his words lingered like the scent of fresh coffee. As the day wore on, his voice replayed in my mind. A small push. Was that what I needed? I glanced at the notebook I kept in the back, filled with sketches and ideas for my dream cafe. It had been weeks since I'd opened it, but now, the thought of flipping through its pages didn't feel so overwhelming. Maybe it was time to take that small step. The next day, I brought my notebook to work, tucking it into my bag like a secret. The morning started as usual, with a line of sleepy faces waiting for their caffeine fix. I moved quickly, juggling orders and making sure every drink was just right. Around mid-morning, I noticed him again, the man with the caramel macchiato. He sat at a table near the window, his coat draped over the chair beside him. This time, he wasn't just passing through. He was staying. Between customers, I stole glances at him. He was reading a book, his fingers tracing the edges of the pages. I felt a strange mix of nerves and curiosity building inside me. Finally, during a lull, I grabbed a rag to wipe the counters and made my way toward his table. "Hi," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I just wanted to say thank you for the note." He looked up, his eyes calm and focused. "You're welcome. Did it help?" I hesitated, then nodded. "I think so. It reminded me of something I've been putting off for a long time." He smiled. "That's good. Dreams tend to wait patiently, but not forever." I pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, surprising even myself. "How did you know I needed to hear that?" He set his book aside. "I didn't. But I've been where you are before. Stuck between wanting something more and not knowing how to begin." I tilted my head, intrigued. "And what did you do?" He leaned back slightly, his expression thoughtful. "I took a risk. I started small, made mistakes, and learned along the way. But the most important step was the first one. I glanced at my bag, where my notebook was hidden. It's scary, though. What if I fail? Failure is part of the process, he said simply. The only real failure is never starting. His words settled over me like a warm blanket. For the first time, the idea of trying, really trying, felt less terrifying and more possible. The bell above the door jingled as new customers entered. I stood up, my cheeks slightly flushed. Thanks for the advice. I should get back to work. He nodded, his eyes following me as I walked back to the counter. One step at a time, he called after me. For the rest of the day, his words played on a loop in my mind. One step at a time. Maybe that was all I needed to do. Take the first step and see where it led. That evening, after the cafe had closed, I sat at one of the corner tables with my notebook open in front of me. The pages were filled with ideas, sketches of a cozy cafe, lists of drinks I wanted to serve, even little notes about the atmosphere I wanted to create. For so long, this notebook had been a dream I was too afraid to chase. But today, the man's words echoed in my mind, one step at a time. I flipped to a blank page and wrote at the top, first step. Underneath, I listed small things I could do to start working toward my dream. Research local coffee suppliers. Learn about small business licenses. Save a little extra money each week. As I wrote, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced in a long time. The overwhelming weight of starting something new began to lift. It didn't have to be perfect or grand. It just had to begin. Then, an idea struck me. I flipped to a fresh page and wrote a challenge for myself, and for anyone who might feel the same way I did. Write down one small step you can take toward your dream. It doesn't have to be big, just possible. Then, share it with someone or say it out loud. Let it become real. I imagine the viewers of this story, people like me, sitting with their own notebooks or phones, thinking about their dreams. What's one step you can take? I whispered to myself, as if speaking directly to them. As I closed the notebook, I felt a new sense of purpose. The cafe lights glowed softly, reflecting in the window beside me. Tomorrow, I would show Mark my plan. Maybe even ask for his advice. And as I locked the cafe door and stepped into the crisp night air, I smiled. My dream didn't feel like a faraway idea anymore. It felt like something real, something I was already beginning to create. I turned to the empty street and whispered, "Thank you," knowing those words weren't just for the man who left the note, they were for myself too. Because tonight, I had taken the first step.